The air in Zarthon Station tasted like metal and desperation. Marcus Webb had been to plenty of trading posts across the outer rim, but this one always left a film on his soul that took days to wash off. The market sprawled across 3 levels of the station's industrial sector, where laws were suggestions and morality was negotiable. He wasn't here to buy Dot, at least. That's what he told himself as he navigated through crowds of merchants hawking their goods. Spices from Centauri 4, weapons from the Forge worlds. And in the back corridors, behind energy barriers and armed guards, the things no civilized species admitted still existed. People. Marcus kept his face neutral as he passed the holding pens. His brown jacket was worn enough to blend in, his posture careful to project neither wealth nor poverty. In places like this, either could get you killed. He'd come to Zarthon tracking a shipment of stolen medical supplies, but his contact hadn't shown. Now he was just trying to leave without incident. Then he saw her. The holding pen was smaller than the others, tucked in an alcove between 2 larger enclosures. Inside, sitting with her back against the far wall, was a female of a species Marcus didn't immediately recognize. Her skin held a silver-blue sheen, though it looked dull under the harsh lights. Her hair fell in dark waves past her shoulders, and her eyes, when they briefly met his, were the deep violet of a bruised sky. She didn't call out, didn't beg, just looked at him for one moment before turning away, as if she'd already calculated his worth and found him wanting. Marcus should have kept walking. See something you like, human? The merchant materialized beside him with the greasy eagerness common to his profession. He was Vextar, his scaled skin gleaming with the oil he used to polish it. Fresh stock. Caliph female. Healthy enough for labor. Caliph? Marcus had heard of them. A species from the Andara cluster, known for their adaptability before a genetic plague had rendered their entire population sterile. Within 2 generations, they'd gone from a spacefaring civilization to a scattered diaspora. Their people sold off as labor since they couldn't produce heirs. Well, mostly healthy. The merchant's smile showed too many teeth. Bit of respiratory damage from the mines, but nothing that'll kill her quick. She's got years of work left in her. Marcus's jaw tightened. She have a name? The merchant blinked, clearly thrown by the question. She answers to female just fine. Why? You interested? His eyes narrowed with fresh calculation. For you, human, I could go as low as 500 credits. She won't cause trouble. Her kind knows their place. Inside the pen, the Caliph woman's shoulders had gone rigid. She was listening. What's wrong with her? Marcus asked, his tone flat. The merchant waved a dismissive hand. Nothing wrong, just infertile, like all her kind. No good for breeding programs, but she can clean, cook, assist with ship maintenance. Very obedient. And if I'm not looking for obedient? The merchant's expression soured. Then you're in the wrong market, human. This one here is broken goods. Her whole species is. That's why the price is so generous. Marcus looked at the woman again. She'd turned back toward them now, her violet eyes meeting his with something that might have been defiance or might have been resignation. It was hard to tell, but there was intelligence there, sharp and clear despite the circumstances. 1 credit, Marcus said. The merchant laughed, a wet, rattling sound. You insult me. You said she was broken goods. Marcus kept his voice level. I'm offering to take damaged merchandise off your hands. 1 credit. Final offer. The laughter died. The merchant studied Marcus with fresh suspicion, trying to work out the angle. Around them, other merchants had started to pay attention, sensing entertainment. You're serious, the merchant said slowly. Completely. A long moment stretched between them. Then the merchant shrugged. Your funeral, human. But no refunds when she dies in a month. The transaction took less than 3 minutes. Marcus pressed a single credit chip into the merchant's palm, and the energy barrier flickered off. The Caliph woman stood slowly, her movements careful, as if waiting for a trap to spring. "Come on," Marcus said quietly, not touching her. "Let's get out of here." She followed him through the market, silent as a shadow. Behind them, Marcus could hear the laughter starting up again. Merchants and buyers alike amused by the foolish human who'd wasted even one credit on worthless goods. They were halfway to the docking bay when she finally spoke. "Why?" Her voice was rough, as if she hadn't used it in a long time. Her grasp of standard was accented but clear. Marcus didn't slow his pace. "Why what? Why purchase me? For one credit, you could have bought a meal. Something useful." He glanced at her. Up close, he could see the faint scars along her neck and arms, the slight wheeze in her breathing. Evidence of years spent in conditions no living being should endure. "Maybe I like bad investments," he said. Her expression didn't change. "I cannot give you what most buyers want. My species is sterile. I cannot produce offspring. I cannot. I don't care about that." She stopped walking. Marcus took a few more steps before realizing she wasn't following. When he turned back, she was staring at him with those violet eyes, trying to read him the way he'd seen intelligence officers read suspects. "Then what do you want?" she asked. Marcus considered the question. The honest answer was complicated. He'd lost someone once, someone who'd looked at him with that same mixture of defiance and desperation before the universe had taken her away. He'd spent 5 years trying to outrun that memory, trading across the outer rim, keeping busy enough that he didn't have to think. But standing in this corridor, looking at a woman the galaxy had decided was worthless, he found himself thinking about it anyway. "I want you to have a choice," he said finally. "My ship is docked at Bay 12. We lift off in 2 hours. You can come with me, or you can take this." He pulled a small pouch from his jacket and held it out. It held maybe 50 credits, enough for passage somewhere safer than Zarthon. "And go wherever you want. Your call." She stared at the pouch like it might explode. "You would give me freedom? I'm giving you options. Freedom's something you'll have to figure out for yourself." Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the pouch. But instead of taking it, she pushed it back toward him. "I will come with you," she said. For now works." Marcus pocketed the credits and started walking again. "I'm Marcus, by the way. Marcus Webb." Another pause. Then quietly, "Neres. Good to meet you, Neres." They walked the rest of the way to Bay 12 in silence, but it felt different now. Less like a merchant and his purchase, more like two people moving in the same direction. Marcus's ship, the Wandering Star, wasn't much to look at, a mid-sized freighter with more patches than original hull plating. But it was his, paid for with honest work, and kept running through sheer stubbornness. Ner. I stopped at the base of the ramp, looking up at it. "Something wrong?" Marcus asked. "I have not been on a ship I could leave," she said softly. "Not in 7 years." 7 years. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "Well, you can leave this one. Whenever you want." "I mean that." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded and climbed the ramp. The Wandering Star's interior was cramped but clean. Marcus kept it organized out of necessity. In a ship this size, clutter could kill you. Neres moved through the corridors like she was mapping escape routes, her eyes taking in every detail. "Crew quarters are here," Marcus said, gesturing to a door. "Bathrooms shared, but the water recycler works most of the time. Galleys forward, and try not to use the food synthesizer unless you're desperate. It makes everything taste like recycled rubber." "Where will you sleep?" Neres asked. "Captain's cabin. Up the ladder, end of the hall." He paused. "The door to your quarters locks from the inside. Just so you know. Understanding flickered across her face. Thank you. Marcus showed her the basics: how to work the shower, where the spare clothes were stored, how to operate the ship's internal comm system. She absorbed it all in silence, asking no questions. I need to run pre-flight, he said finally. Make yourself at home, or as close to home as a freighter gets. He left her there and headed to the cockpit, trying to focus on the familiar routines of departure prep. But his mind kept drifting back to the woman in the crew quarters, to the careful way she'd moved through the ship, to the intelligence in her eyes that years of slavery hadn't managed to extinguish. One credit. Galaxy thought she was worthless. Marcus had a feeling the Galaxy was wrong. The wandering star's engines hummed to life, and Marcus requested departure clearance from station control. 30 minutes later, they were clear of Zarthun's gravitational field, jumping to hyperspace with no particular destination in mind. In the crew quarters, Neres sat on the edge of the narrow bunk, her hands folded in her lap. The room was small but private, clean, safe. She didn't trust it yet, but somewhere, buried beneath 7 years of survival instincts and learned helplessness, a tiny spark of something that might have been hope flickered to life. The wandering star drifted through the Kepler passage, a relatively safe trade route that saw enough traffic to discourage pirates, but not so much that authorities asked uncomfortable questions. Marcus had set the autopilot 3 days ago and hadn't bothered changing course. Without a contract or cargo, he had nowhere particular to be. Neres had barely left the crew quarters. She emerged for meals, moving through the galley like a ghost, taking only what she needed before retreating again. Marcus didn't push. He'd seen enough trauma in his years trading the outer rim to recognize someone who needed time and space to remember how to be a person again. On the 4th day, he found her in the observation deck. It wasn't much of a deck, just a small room with a reinforced viewport showing the star-streaked darkness of hyperspace. But it was Neres's first time there, standing close to the glass with her hand pressed against it. Beautiful, isn't it? Marcus said from the doorway. She didn't startle. I had forgotten, she said quietly, what space looks like when you are not chained in a cargo hold. Marcus moved to stand beside her, keeping a respectful distance. How long were you in that market? 3 months. Before that, the mines on Keswick 7. Before that, she trailed off. It does not matter. Each place was the same. 7 years, Marcus said, remembering what she'd told him at the station. 7 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Her reflection in the viewport showed no emotion. I counted. They stood in silence, watching hyperspace flow past. Finally, Marcus spoke again. I'm heading to Verona Colony, small trading outpost on the edge of the Terminus sector. I've got some contacts there who might have work. We'll arrive in about a week. And then you decide what you want to do. Stay, go, whatever. He glanced at her. I meant what I said about choices. Neres turned to face him fully for the first time since they'd left Zarthon. In the dim light of the observation deck, her silver-blue skin seemed to glow faintly. Her violet eyes studied him with that same sharp intelligence. Why do you do this? She asked. You are a trader. Traders seek profit. I bring you none. Marcus leaned against the wall, considering his answer. 5 years ago, I was engaged. Her name was Rebecca. She was a shuttle pilot, worked the inner colonies. Good at her job, better person. He smiled slightly at the memory. We were supposed to get married on Europa Station. I had the ring, the reservations, everything planned. Neres waited, silent. She took a contract flying relief supplies to a quarantine zone. Said it was good money, and we needed good money for the life we wanted to build. His voice went flat. Ship's life support malfunctioned. By the time anyone found her, she'd been dead for 3 days. "I am sorry," Neres said softly. Marcus shook his head. "Point is, after she died, I spent 2 years angry. Angry at her for taking that contract. Angry at myself for not stopping her. Angry at a universe that let good people die for no damn reason." He met Neris's eyes. "Then one day I realized being angry wasn't bringing her back. So I started trying to do something she would have respected. Help when I can. Make small differences where possible. One credit at a time." There might have been the ghost of humor in her voice. "Something like that." Neres turned back to the viewport. "Your Rebecca was fortunate. To be loved so deeply. I was the fortunate one." They stood together in comfortable silence until the ship's computer chimed, announcing a minor course correction. Marcus excused himself to check the navigation systems, leaving Neres alone with the stars. Over the following days, something shifted. Neres began spending more time outside her quarters. She'd appear in the galley while Marcus was cooking, watching silently as he attempted to make the food synthesizer produce something edible. She started asking questions about the ship, about the systems, about how hyperspace navigation worked. Marcus answered everything honestly, even showing her the basic pilot controls when she expressed curiosity. "You trust me with this?" she asked, her hands hovering over the console. "Should I not? I am property." Was property? She corrected herself quickly. "Most would fear I would steal the ship." Marcus shrugged. "If you wanted to steal it, you'd have done it by now. Besides, the wandering star isn't worth much. She's held together by hope and spare parts." "She is beautiful," Neres said. And Marcus realized she meant it. On the 6th day, Marcus woke to find Neres in the engine room, her hands covered in grease, repairing a coolant leak he'd been meaning to fix for weeks. "You know ship mechanics?" he asked, impressed. "I worked in the mines, then on processing ships, then in the markets." She didn't look up from her work. "You learn many things when your value depends on usefulness. Well, if you can fix that coolant system, you're officially more useful than me." The corner of her mouth twitched. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. That evening, they shared a meal in the galley. Real conversation this time, not just practical exchanges. Neres told him about Caliph culture, about the music and art her people had created before the sterility plague. Marcus told her about growing up on Mars colony, about learning to trade from his father. "He sounds like a good man," Neres said. "He was. Died when I was 19. Heart failure." Marcus stared into his mug of recycled coffee. "Left me the ship and a mountain of debt. Took me 4 years to pay it off. But you kept the ship. It was all I had of him." Marcus smiled. That and his terrible taste in music. As if on cue, the ship's entertainment system kicked in, playing something with too many synthesizers and not enough melody. Neres tilted her head, listening. "This is unique," she said diplomatically. Marcus laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. "That's one word for it." Neris's expression softened. "You have a good laugh, yeah?" Marcus felt heat rise in his face. "Well, don't get used to it. I don't usually have much to laugh about. Perhaps that should change." Their eyes met across the small table, and something unspoken passed between them. Marcus felt it like a current, a pull he hadn't experienced since Rebecca. Dangerous, complicated. He stood abruptly. "I should check the nav system. We're getting close to Verona." If Neres noticed his sudden retreat, she didn't comment. That night, Marcus lay in his cabin, staring at the ceiling. This was a bad idea. Getting attached to someone who'd been through what Neres had endured, who'd trusted him with the fragments of her recovery. It wasn't fair to her. She needed stability, safety, not some trader with emotional baggage and a ship that barely ran. But when he closed his eyes, all he saw were violet eyes and silver blue skin, and the careful way she'd started to smile. On the 7th day, they dropped out of hyperspace near Verona Colony. The colony was a modest affair, a dozen interconnected habitation modules built around an old mining station. It served as a waypoint for traders and travelers, offering fuel, supplies, and no questions asked about your business. Marcus docked at the outer ring and ran through the shutdown procedures. Neres stood in the cockpit doorway, watching. "We are here," she said. "Yeah, and now I must decide." Marcus kept his eyes on the control panel. "No pressure. You can take your time, figure out what you want, Marcus." Her voice was soft but firm. "Look at me." He turned. Neres stood straight, her chin lifted, looking stronger than the broken woman he'd bought for 1 credit. "I want to stay," she said. "With you. On this ship." Marcus's heart hammered. "Neres, you don't have to." "I am not deciding from obligation." She moved closer. "I am deciding because for the first time in 7 years, I feel like a person again. Because you see me as more than what I cannot give. Because when I am near you, I remember what it feels like to hope." "I'm not," Marcus struggled for words. "I'm just a trader. I've got nothing to offer you but a broken ship and an uncertain future. You offered me freedom. You offered me respect. You offered me a chance to remember who I was before the galaxy decided I was worthless." She was standing right in front of him now. "That is everything." Marcus wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But the words died in his throat when Neres reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool against his, smooth except for the calluses from years of hard labor. Her touch was tentative, testing, asking a question she didn't have words for. "I'm not good at this," Marcus admitted. "After Rebecca, I swore I wouldn't." "I am not her," Neres said gently. "And you are not asking me to be." "No, you're not her." Marcus squeezed her hand carefully. "You're you. And that's more than enough." They stood there in the cockpit, hands joined, the weight of unspoken feelings hanging between them. Outside the viewport, Verona Colony rotated slowly against the backdrop of stars. Finally, Marcus cleared his throat. "I need to meet my contact. Do some business." "You want to come? See the colony?" Neres nodded. "I would like that." They walked through Verona's corridors together, and Marcus noticed the way people looked at them. A human and a caliph. Unusual, but not unheard of. What caught attention was the way they moved together, not as owner and property, but as equals. Marcus's contact, a grizzled Terran named Victor, had a shipping contract. Medical supplies to the frontier worlds. Good pay, minimal risk. You'll take it? Victor asked. Marcus glanced at Neres, who nodded slightly. "Yeah, we'll take it. We?" Victor raised an eyebrow. "You got crew now?" "Partner," Marcus said, surprising himself. "Neres is my partner." Later, as they loaded cargo, Neres spoke quietly. "Partner? If that's okay with you." She considered this. Partners share burdens, share decisions, share lives. Usually, yeah, then I accept. She smiled, small but genuine. Partner. Over the next 3 weeks, they ran the medical supply route. Neres proved invaluable. She had an intuitive understanding of ship systems and a talent for negotiation that Marcus lacked. They worked well together, falling into an easy rhythm. But the other thing growing between them was harder to navigate. It started with small touches. Marcus's hand on Neres's shoulder when explaining a system. Neres's fingers brushing his when passing tools. Moments that lasted a heartbeat too long. loaded with meaning neither quite knew how to express. One evening, after a particularly smooth delivery, they celebrated with actual food, not synthesized rations, but real vegetables and protein Marcus had splurged on at the last station. "This is good," Neri said, savoring each bite. Rebecca used to say the secret to happiness was good food and good company. Marcus raised his glass. I think she was right. Neri's raised hers as well. To Rebecca, for teaching you well. They drank, and something loosened in Marcus's chest. The guilt he'd been carrying felt lighter somehow, like permission had been granted. "Can I ask you something?" Neri said after a moment. "Anything. Do you feel it too?" "This," she gestured between them. "Connection?" Marcus set down his glass carefully. "Yeah, I feel it. And does it frighten you?" "Terrifies me," he admitted. "I already lost someone I loved. The thought of going through that again." He trailed off. Neres reached across the table and took his hand. "I understand fear. I lived in it for 7 years. But I have learned something recently." "What's that?" "That fear is not the same as danger. And that some risks are worth taking." Marcus turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. "You sure about this? About us?" "You know I can't." "You can't have children?" Neres finished quietly. "I know. My species cannot reproduce. It is our curse." "It's not a curse. And it doesn't change how I feel." "How do you feel?" Marcus stood, still holding her hand, and pulled her gently to her feet. They stood close enough that he could see the faint pattern in her silver blue skin, like starlight frozen beneath the surface. "I feel like I found something I didn't know I was looking for," he said softly. "Someone who makes me want to be better. Someone who reminds me that the universe isn't just darkness and loss." Neris's free hand came up to rest against his chest, over his heart. "I feel the same. You make me believe I am more than what was done to me, more than the emptiness I carry." "You are so much more," Marcus said fiercely. "You're brilliant and strong and beautiful, and anyone who couldn't see that was blind." Tears gathered in Neris's violet eyes. "No one has called me beautiful since—" She didn't finish, but Marcus understood. "Since before the plague. Since before her people became something to be pitied and exploited." He cupped her face gently in his hands. "May I kiss you?" Neris's breath caught. Then she nodded. The kiss was soft, tentative, two broken people finding comfort in each other. When they finally pulled apart, both were trembling. "Stay with me," Marcus whispered. "Not just on the ship. Stay with me." "Yes," Neres said simply. That night they fell asleep together in Marcus's cabin, bodies curved together like parentheses around shared warmth. It was the first time in 7 years that Neres slept without nightmares. The first time in 5 that Marcus slept without reaching for someone who was gone. Outside, the stars wheeled on in their eternal dance, indifferent to the small miracles happening aboard a beat-up freighter. But inside the wandering star, 2 hearts began beating in sync, creating something the galaxy thought impossible: hope.